14 days into this escalating conflict, Iran has just fired its most dangerous shot yet. It was not a kinetic strike, not a missile, not a suicide drone, and not a ballistic weapon of any kind. Instead, it was a single sentence delivered by a senior Iranian official to CNN on Saturday morning. Iran announced it would allow oil tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, but with one absolute condition: the cargo must be paid for in Chinese yuan, not US dollars. These words carry more weight than any tactical maneuver on the battlefield in the past 2 weeks. What Iran has proposed is not merely a military shift, it is a direct, calculated attack on the financial system that has kept America at the center of the global economy for over half a century. Today, we must break down exactly what that sentence means, why it matters more than any explosion seen on television, and what happens to the world if this precedent gains traction. When most people hear the word petrodollar, their eyes glaze over. It sounds like a dry economics lecture or something theoretical discussed in boardrooms rather than battlefields. However, the petrodollar system is the primary reason America can afford to project military power across the entire planet simultaneously. It is the reason the United States can run massive deficits that would bankrupt any other nation. Despite spending trillions on wars and debt, the dollar remains the currency every country on earth is forced to hold. If you remove that system, the financial foundation of American global hegemony begins to crack. Iran just threw a massive stone at that foundation. To understand the gravity of this, you have to look back to 1971. Before that year, the dollar was tied to gold. Every dollar in circulation was backed by physical gold sitting in American vaults. Countries trusted the dollar because they could, in theory, exchange it for gold. When Richard Nixon ended that arrangement, the gold backing disappeared and the dollar faced a crisis of trust. The answer came from the Middle East. In 1974, the United States struck a deal with Saudi Arabia. The arrangement was simple. Saudi Arabia would price all its oil sales exclusively in US dollars. In return, America would provide total military protection for the kingdom. OPEC followed suit, country by country. This created a permanent structural demand for the American currency. Every industrial economy, Japan, China, Germany, India, needed dollars to buy the energy required to function. This allowed America to borrow and spend endlessly, maintaining a military presence that no other country could replicate. The petrodollar is the financial spine of American power, and it has survived for 52 years because every attempt to challenge it has been met with overwhelming force. Iran is not the first to try this, and the history is telling. Iraq, 2000. Saddam Hussein announced that Iraq would switch its oil sales from dollars to euros. 3 years later, America invaded Iraq. After the invasion, Iraqi oil sales were immediately returned to dollars. Libya, 2011. Muammar Gaddafi proposed a gold-backed pan-African currency for oil trade. That same year, NATO forces intervened, Gaddafi was killed, and the proposal died with him. Venezuela, 2026. Nicolas Maduro deepened ties with China and promoted oil trade outside the dollar system. The Trump administration captured him in January 2026. Analysts call this the petrodollar war theory, the idea that countries threatening dollar oil pricing face consequences far beyond ordinary diplomatic pressure. Now, Iran, the country America has been bombing for 14 days, has announced it will reopen the most critical oil choke point on the planet, but only on terms that bypass the dollar entirely. This is a specific and deliberate move. The Revolutionary Guard Navy, IRGC, is already issuing certificates, essentially permits, allowing ships to pass through the strait. Iran controls the valve, and Iran is now deciding what currency you need to pay to open it. For China, this is the opportunity of a century. Beijing has spent years building the infrastructure for this moment. The M-Bridge project, UN-denominated oil futures, and swap lines with dozens of nations. Now, with Hormuz partially closed and oil prices soaring above $100 a barrel, countries are facing a practical choice. Do they wait for America to reopen the strait on dollar terms, or do they quietly accept Iran's Yuan condition to keep their economies moving? Some are not waiting. India and Turkey are already navigating these calculations to ensure their energy imports continue. While the Gulf states are trying to divert oil through alternative pipelines, those pipes can only handle about 2.6 million barrels per day. Hormuz carries 20 million. That 12 million barrel deficit gives Iran immense leverage. The reality for Washington is that it cannot bomb its way out of this particular problem. Airstrikes can destroy centrifuges, kill generals, and flatten infrastructure, but they cannot force China to stop buying oil in yuan. They cannot prevent India from making a quiet financial calculation for its own survival. The dollar's dominance is enforced by habit, trust, and the absence of a credible alternative. Iran, backed by the world's second largest economy, is now actively building that alternative. Unlike Saddam or Gaddafi, Iran is not alone. China is not going to intervene to stop this. They are going to quietly encourage it. Every Yuan-denominated transaction is a data point proving the world can function without the US Treasury. Oil prices have already surged 47% in 15 days. Every day, the shipping lanes remain anchored and the prices stay elevated. The pressure on global governments to find a workable solution grows. Iran is offering that solution on its own terms. Trump's war rationale was built on demonstrating American strength and restoring deterrence. However, there is a version of this war where America wins every tactical battle in the air, but loses the quiet, invisible structural authority that comes from being the world's indispensable currency. 52 years ago, a deal in Riyadh built the foundation of American power. Today, in the narrow waters between Iran and Oman, that foundation is being dismantled. Whether the dollar emerges from this conflict intact may matter more for the next 50 years than anything happening in the skies over Tehran.